Yo, today I'm talking about Asmongold. We're making a video about some things that he's been talking about recently in some of his more political videos, and I'm just going to jump straight into it. If you clicked on this video, you're either an Asmongold fan that wants to know why someone has an opposing opinion from what he says because he usually gives reasonable takes, or you hate Asmongold and you are looking to further drive down the pipeline of Asmongold hatred videos. And of course, there is the alternative that you're just a reasonable person that enjoys, debating or speculating different viewpoints on things around the world or mundane things like video games and anime or whatnot. But regardless of why you clicked on the video, I want you to know that this video is completely off the cuff. I've written no notes. I have prepared no script for the video. This is coming from someone who watches a frequent amount of his content, for better or for worse. I like the content that he covers. Sometimes I disagree with him, sometimes I don't. That doesn't really matter. People aren't some dogmatic NPCs where you have to agree or disagree with everything they say. I know most of you already know that, but some people find that extremely hard to believe. So if you're one of those people, you should probably click off the video, to be honest. But anyways, I'm just going to donkey punch you with the hard, cold truth of what I'm talking about in this video. We're going to get directly into it, so there's no beating around the bush. I'm talking about Asmongold's stance on anything social politically with white people. And I've noticed that he's had to mention it a lot in recent political videos or social commentary videos that he has made on his channel in recent days or weeks, because it is becoming more and more of a prevalent issue in our society. A lot of white people feel like they've been taken advantage of and they feel disenfranchised, and he's had to bring it up. He's been forced to acknowledge this part of social politics. If you have watched any Asmongold content in the past, whether you hate him or you love him, if you actually did watch the content, you would know that Asmongold actually avoids defending white people in most circumstances, and he will only really comment on the negative aspects of white people's behavior, how they act as a collective, what they represent. He usually won't comment negative things about other races because he can correct me if I'm wrong. He stated in past videos he feels like it's not really his place, and he feels like he's only really allowed to criticize his own race. At least he feels like that's what's acceptable online for his YouTube and Twitch channel. Occasionally you'll get an Asmongold video where he actually does defend something that's relevant to white people as a collective, such as recently with the new mayor of New York City being elected, Zoran. He did say that he would never vote for him because Zoran had made a comment in the past, apparently, which I didn't see, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere online, about how he would like to individually create a tax that specifically targeted white suburban neighborhoods, which is a very odd thing to say, and Asmongold said that he would never vote for him based off of that virtue alone, as he is a white person himself. So always credit where credit is due. He has said things like this in the past. It's very few and far between, and I notice heavily that whenever there is something that happened to a white person or someone who associates with the white collective in our country, or even in foreign countries, he is always super, super careful to not make it about race, to not advocate for what's happening to white people at all. He avoids the topic almost altogether, and he'll always try to associate with something else, such as classism or circumstance outside of class, behavioral disorders, education, things like this. He'll try and draw an abstract from society, but even when there's a reoccurring pattern, to quote Asmongold, one dot on a graph is a dot, two dots create a line, and multiple dots create a pattern. And to be honest, I feel like he's been a bit of a hypocrite about white people and their social issues, and I'm here to talk about that today. Now, I could definitely make a series out of this because I've noticed it's a repeating behavior that he has, and it's totally fine. Everyone on the internet can act however they want, but as we all know, it's not exempt from criticism. And this is not a personal attack on him and how he wants to run his channel, more so of something that I've noticed that I personally am rubbed the wrong way about. Mainly because it seems inappropriate isn't the correct word. It seems like there's a lack of charity given to the people that he would associate himself with when he is eager to give it to almost any other demographic of persons in our country or around the entire world. So, to hone in on specifically what I'm talking about, is recently his comment about white people entering into the game of identity politics. Now, the reason why I think this argument is disingenuous on the front of it is simply because there is a difference between how identity politics is used as a term in our modern society. There is a literal definition for what identity politics is in a literal sense, and that definition you can find readily available to you anywhere. Then there is the social strangulation of the word in recent years, which has been equated to something closer to slang than a real definition. People online will often refer to, woke ideologies or mindsets, as much as I hate the word. They will correlate those ideas or principles to identity politics, meaning someone over exacerbating how much their identity is really the causation for their suffering or their disadvantage or why something bad is happening. And I've noticed this has become a more and more common phenomenon, and as it has become more common, even, persevering through resistance of a growing majority in the country, Asman is always very consistent on it, even when it is more favorable to finally attack people for going after white people or whatnot. He always goes very, very, very easy on them. Every single time, he will insist that I'm fabricating this information or that I'm making a wrongful correlation to the way that he's framing certain events or what he talks about. But I promise we can go through all of his videos, and when we make comparisons, this is a fact. And by the way, it's completely fine that he chooses to run his channel that way and that he chooses to speak about these subjects in the way that he wants to. I'm not the arbiter of this guy's channel or how he wants to talk about different subject matters. That is absolutely ridiculous, and I know he would agree with me about the absurdity of trying to do something like that, tone policing or trying to give a prescription of how people should talk on the internet. But anyway, back to the crux of the argument. Asmongold recently has talked about with the political extremism, not necessarily from the left, but from a certain demographic of people that believe in very progressive ideology in general, whether it's social issues or down to economics. They have very, very progressive thinking, like universal basic income, which Asmongold actually very much agrees with. Increasing taxes for wealthy people to a very high degree, which he also agrees with, which is why it always boggles my mind that people call him right-leaning. He himself has declared that he is slightly left-leaning if he had to choose a political spectrum, but he doesn't really like to do that. I completely respect that. And then other people also believe in the social engineering of these politics, such as transgender politics, gender-affirming care, women and men's sports, diversity, equity, and inclusion, different things among the relative categories that I just laid out. This is what a lot of people in the progressive sphere would say that they believe in. And identity politics has been used to associate arguments made from the point of view of someone's identity, where they overcompensate with their identity and they make that the reason for why everything's wrong with them. He's been very adamant to call those people out. I just want to preface that he 100% has. But why this is truly so strange that he would then wrongfully associate what white people have started doing as a reaction to this extremism at large, I find it really disingenuous that he would conflate the two. He knows, as well as I do, that identity politics have been used in two completely different ways throughout the last 10 years. That is a fact. I can outline that in a future video if I cover this topic again, and we can go into the nitty-gritty of the exact definitional differences. But my main point is that I know Asman can identify the difference in how these terms are used socially. The one that he is referring to that talks about these groups of progressive people who rely on who they are on a fundamental level to carry them through all of life's trials and tribulations. He knows that that is what we're referring to, and that's what he is referring to as well. He's recently stated over and over again that white people are entering the game of identity politics, and that is just completely untrue. How in the world are you going to equate a reaction to extremism to the propagating of extremism in itself for absolutely no reason whatsoever, mind you? These people created this system as a way to get around accountability so that they could always rely and fall back on a victim mentality. Everyone knows it. He knows it. I know it. You all know it. It is provable through evidence that we've collected over the last few decades, and it can be proved definitionally as well. White people have seen an increase in crime rate in everywhere that they live. They've been constantly persecuted online and in real life for simply existing, regardless of their opinions or beliefs or anything that they have actually done in their life. It's completely unfair, and the scales have been tipped one way for a very, very long time. Now, he says that identity politics and white people joining in on them is essentially a race to the bottom from both sides, and here's why I completely disagree. White people have been made to feel very, very little and very, very accountable for pretty much the entire world's problems. This is the simple concept of white guilt, and it's been around for many, many years. They have also been silenced from communicating their opinions or just speaking on common sense, and especially in the U.S., we've just been told to accept this clown show and continue to participate in it with a smile on our face. Whenever he gets to the part where he should acknowledge things like this, he will always then go to the default settings of, well, certain groups of people were disadvantaged how many years ago, and that does have real tangible effects on how things function and work today, which he's not wrong about. But I find it very funny that when it's finally his time to acknowledge something that white people are going through and how there is a very real danger to white people as a collective in most Western countries right now, he'll just avoid talking about it further or acknowledging it or giving it any agency whatsoever. And he'll then go back to default settings and once again talk about the people who feel like they've been disenfranchised from things that have happened hundreds of years ago. Like I said, I completely agree that there are real tangible effects from policies that have been created years ago. But why can't he do the same thing for white people and how they're struggling just as much as everyone else right now? And socially speaking, they've been getting raw dogged for many, many years. And besides the US, if we're going to talk about European countries as a whole, native, ethnically white countries that have been, bombarded by constant terrorism, illegal immigrants, suffering economies, policies that have threatened to arrest them if they are to speak out about any of these things, flooded by progressive politics and social ideologies that have infected their schools, their children. I'm pretty sure in Britain right now, only one of every 4 kids who are enrolled in the school are actually native to the country, which is absolutely insane to me. And don't get me wrong, he will acknowledge all of this stuff. That's not my argument. My fundamental argument is that he is completely incorrect about the race to the bottom, and that's where I've gotten to right now in this discussion, is that how is it a race to the bottom when you realize that your government isn't going to protect you? You are going to continue to be villainized online and in real life just for simply existing and wishing to perpetuate your culture and continue your lineage and to make a living wage like everyone else, and to just be a normal person and to protect your home countries. How is it a race to the bottom when you wake up and realize, okay, my government's not doing anything about immigration. My government's not doing anything about my safety. My government's not doing anything about my family unit. My government's not doing anything about discrimination of my religion and my heritage. My government isn't doing any of this. Well, then what are you supposed to do? Because if you're not going to react to it and actually put energy into solving the issue and combating it, well then what has happened to white people in every country that they reside in for the last 125 years is going to continue to happen. They're going to continue to be guilt-tripped. They're going to continue to be gaslit into believing that they need to give people opportunities for all these obscure reasons, and that they need to sacrifice their own well-being to let foreigners who don't believe in anything that they believe in, or who quite frankly hate them, have all these successive opportunities that they will no longer get. After how long does it become reasonable for people to react a certain way to all of these things happening to them and their families, quite frankly, worldwide in every Western nation on the face of the planet? And this is not exclusive to just white people. This is happening to Eastern Asians as of recent as well. It's even happening in Australia, which is currently predominantly white. And I'm sure he'd like to point that out. I'm sure he'd like to include the exceptions that it is happening to certain other groups of people. And he would correlate it to a 20% of people that cause all of society's problems, and blah, 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 blah. But when are we going to acknowledge that maybe, immigrants or people who would rather see their country flipped on its head than fight for its history? When are we going to acknowledge that maybe this is a tool used by the government? Maybe this is orchestrated in some way? And I'm sure he'd like to downplay that concept too. He'd like to belittle it and delegitimize the argument by calling it conspiracy, calling it unfounded, but citing no evidence or argument to counter what I'm saying and what many others are saying as well. At what point do you look around and realize, if I don't stand up, and I don't see anyone else standing up, who will stand up? He said that it's going to culminate in, ultimately at the end of the day, into violent outbursts, very, very, very high tensions between racial demographics and classes in different countries in the West. And he's not wrong. But my question that I'm proposing to him is that why is it wrong to escalate it to that level when someone else, a foreign entity, or someone foreign from yourself or your community, has already done so? If you don't put your hands up in a boxing ring that someone has thrown you into without your consent, you're going to get knocked out. You're going to get killed. Someone is going to hurt you. That's what white people across the entire world have been doing for decades, and look where it's gotten them. It's gotten them into destroyed culture, destroyed family, destroyed civilizations. It's been completely messed up. And to constantly avoid acknowledging this and to make it seem like it's a equivalency fallacy where, oh, they're doing something bad, but now we're doing something bad, so we're both kind of doing something bad, and it's all wrong. That is such a disingenuous argument because, if you don't do something, then you'll go extinct. That's how all life on Earth works. If you don't fight for survival, if you don't fight to protect yourself, if you don't do any of that, you'll go extinct. And I don't think that that's what he was advocating for. Not at all. I don't think he's that ignorant, nor do I think he's that rash with his decision making. I simply just don't understand, honestly, why this is such a difficult topic for him. And historically, he's had a bit of an issue ever admitting if maybe he, hasn't covered something in a genuine way or whatnot. And I'm sure he'd like to obfuscate once again and make some appeal about, oh, so because I'm not covering it the way you want me to, all of a sudden I'm not doing enough, or I'm doing something wrong, or I'm saying something wrong. I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. It's not what I'm saying at all. It truly isn't. I'm simply posing the question: what is your prescription, since you want to judge other people's? What would your prescription be to white people as a collective, no matter what first world country they are in right now? What would your prescription to them be? What advice would you give them? Would your advice be to not perpetuate hate and to stand firm, because that hasn't worked? Would your advice be to turn the other cheek? Would it be to, bunker down and endure? Would it be to vote? I know you like to talk about voting a lot, and how important it is for us to try and make change through legislature instead of vigilantism and other things like that. We've tried that. We've tried all of this for a very long time, and look where it's brought all of our countries. It's too late for all that. You look at what's happening in the UK. I mean, you've been reacting to all the Tyler Oliveira videos recently. You've seen what happens in the common streets of all these countries. You see the demographic shifts. You see the cultural shifts. You see the cultural silencing, and you see all of it. His prediction is that one day very soon, Europe is going to elect someone very radical and very extreme and very dangerous, and when that happens, we're basically going to run back the world wars. And he might not be wrong, but history is a funny way of repeating itself. If you read through history, I'm not going to go into the category of politics that you think I'm about to go into, but if you read history, what happened in the world wars is something that's similarly taking place now in current society. Same with many, many wars that turned out this way because of circumstantial differences in policies in their country and belief systems. What happened was basically a corruption and a perversion of culture, and it bred hostility and extremism, and that's what gave birth to the tragedies that followed. And it wasn't necessarily the reactionaries' fault for defending themselves. If you'd like to mischaracterize what I'm trying to say and to villainize me as well, that's incredibly okay. I couldn't care less about that. But the truth of the matter is that people have ran out of time. They've ran out of options. They are running out of lives. They're running out of safe havens. They're running out of everything. And when you push someone into a corner, if you fuck with a dog while it's trying to sleep, and you keep poking it, and you give it no choice, where it either has to choose to keep getting poked and not being able to sleep, or to bite the hand that's poking it and finally be able to rest, well, how can anyone be surprised when that happens? So I just can't stand this constant messaging of always having to point it back onto what we should be doing better, or what white people across the world need to be doing better, and how that they shouldn't be pushed towards extremism, that they shouldn't venture into identity politics, which I think is a very disingenuous use of the modernization of that term to begin with. It is not a one-to-one equivalation. It isn't whatsoever. And I just don't think many people are buying that whatsoever. It is really easy when you're in a safe, comfortable position to make declarations like this, but when you don't give people prescriptions on what they should do alternatively to your plan, which has done nothing but cause them pain and suffering for years, a lot of people aren't really going to accept that. And neither am I, quite frankly. I don't think This is an accurate assessment of what's going on in the world, and I don't think that the rhetoric is healthy. It's basically setting up white people to become the villains of society once again because they don't like getting slapped around while their hands are tied behind their back. And the cycle is going to repeat, and it's going to perpetuate itself, and we'll be right back to square one, except it'll be even worse next time. I'd love to know. I truly would love to know, what is your prescription? What is an alternative plan? Outline something that can actually foster results instead of always using these obscure, non-assertive, abstract arguments that can never actually pinpoint exact solutions and provide, or my bad, you can never pinpoint exact problems and then offer specific solutions to them. It's not Asmongold's job, but I just find the commentary on a bunch of these situations to be highly disingenuous. And even if it's not intentional, or if we just have different opinions, that's totally okay. I'm not here to hate on him or his channel. I think that he's a great content creator. I love watching his videos. This is not a video where we all, jerk off and sing songs to how fucking horrible the Roach King is. This is just me being honest, and it would honestly be fantastic if I could get a response from him. Not that I'm entitled to one. I'm not some lunatic that expects some random content creator online to give me the time of day or any acknowledgement for what I'm saying. I just wholeheartedly believe in what I'm saying, and I believe that if he talked to more people about this, and maybe behind closed doors he does feel differently, or he is more assertive about his beliefs, maybe not. I don't know. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If there's anything that I left out or you feel like I probably could have argued better, I'm totally open to talking about it, because I do want to do more of these off-the-cuff videos. I feel like it's more natural and it comes across as more authentic. I have no problem circling back and making a series of videos covering a topic. But this is something that was really important to me. And I'll continue to talk about whatever I want to talk about, even if I feel like it's super controversial or people are going to completely bastardize me for believing certain things or framing things in a certain way. I don't want to be one of those YouTubers that creates this wall between, what they actually think and what they are telling people, at least when it's not necessary. I understand there are specific situations where you do need to play things closer to the chest, but I would like to not do that as much as possible. I like to believe that Asmongold happens to do the same. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.